Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be going over many of the things that have happened relating to the MiSTer project over the year 2022. I'll be talking about the new cores released, features added, some of the hardware releases, and more. So let's get into it. I'll first start off with the amazing progress that the PlayStation Core has done over 2022. I first reported on the beginnings of PlayStation sound development in January. Initially, the sound was only working on the developer's software emulator, and at the time, there were worries about the core needing a second RAM module in order to provide the bandwidth to get usable sound. But as we know now, that is not the case. To help with the development of the MiSTerFGPA core, Robert Pipe, the developer, first created a software emulator that was going to be one-to-one compatible with the MiSTer core. This software emulator helped significantly speed up the core's development. And going back to the initial sound development that was done in January, check out what was the first sound that was shown off using the core's simulator. It's amazing that we went from that to full sound in less than a year. The core was then officially released in May, but the work didn't stop. The developer is still to this day fixing bugs, increasing accuracy, and adding some amazing new features. Some notable features of the core include the loading of CHD images, cheat support, save state supports, snack support so you can use original PlayStation controllers, rumble support. There are also features that go above and beyond what a real PlayStation can do. Features like adding a CPU data cache, something that the original CPU did not have. This data cache allowed games to run at higher frame rates. There's bilinear filtering, which helps smooth out blocky textures, an 8x CD speed increase, so load times go much quicker, 24-bit color rendering which smooths out dithering, and many more features. If you are one of the developer's Patreon subscribers, you get some bonus articles that give you technical details on how parts of the PlayStation works, how bugs are found and fixed in the core, and more. It really has been a great year for PlayStation development on the MiSTerFGPA. While we don't have an official Saturn core available for MiSTer, the developer SRG320 is working really hard to improve the current state of the core. This year, there's been significant sound improvements to the Saturn core. Sound used to be very glitchy, but that glitchiness has been significantly reduced. At the beginning of the year, the developer was only testing US games and mentioned that of the 135 games that he had, there were about only 25 that were fully playable with minor glitches. The ongoing updates throughout the year has increased the compatibility, but at the moment there is no official compatibility list. But you can discuss compatibility with other users in the MiSTerFGPA Discord channel and the MiSTerFGPA forums. The core can work with one RAM module, but some games need 2 RAM modules to work. Even though the core is far from release, you are still able to obtain builds from users who download the source code and compile it themselves. Now I want to talk about some of the arcade cores that were released. There are many core developers for the MiSTerFGPA project, and many of them are working on multiple cores. Let me start off with the arcade cores that Jotego released in 2022. There was a RoboCop core, Super Basketball, Hippodrome, a one-on-one fighting game where you are a human that fights monsters, Midnight Resistance, Sly Spy, Boulder Dash, Road Fighter, Hypersports, Konami's Ping Pong, Roston Saga, Track and Field, Vigilante, Pang, Super Pang, Capcom World, a Japanese trivia game, Block Block, an Arkanoid clone, Dokuben, a card-based baseball game, Renegade, Rock and Rope, Insector X, Karate Champ, an early one-on-one fighting game, Picker, a side-scrolling platform/fighting game, Mikey, Kageki, a quirky one-on-one fighting game, and Chelnov. You can download the cores developed by Jotego using the update all script. One thing to note about Jotego's cores is that they are not all available to the public. The process he uses for releasing cores involves first releasing beta cores to his Patreon subscribers. As soon as those betas reach a certain stability point, Jotego then releases the core to the public. Now let me tell you some of the arcade cores that were released by Darren O in a Track 17. Early in the year, there was a Zero Wing core, Outzone, Hellfire, a horizontally scrolling shooter with the option to change the direction your ship shoots, Terra Cresta, Soldier Girl Amazon, Terraforce, Kozier Okami, Spinner 87 Legion, Crazy Climber, Sky Robo / Big Fighter, Gang Wars, Formation Armed F, Truxton, Ikari Warriors, Truxton 2, Snow Bros 2, Ikari Warriors 3, Prehistoric Isle, Search and Rescue, Street Smart, POW, Prisoners of War, Sky Adventure, Super Champion Baseball, Time Soldiers, and Sky Soldiers. You can download Darren O's and the Track 17's cores using Update All and enabling the CoinOp collection database. Now here are some arcade cores released by core developer Javier. There's Alpha Mission, Tank 3, Athena, Lee Trevino's Fighting Golf, and Zane Selena. Now here are some arcade cores developed by Jimmy Stones. There's Missile Command, Blockade, and Clean Sweep. Now let me mention some arcade cores released by developer Pierco. There's Cosmo Police Galivan, Chameleon, UFO Robo Dangar, Bank Panic, Express Raider, and Crazy Blocks. Next up are some cave cores released by developer nullobject. They're ESP Raid, Hot Dog Storm, Gaia Crusaders, Dompachi, Guange, Dangan Feveron, and Puzzle Uopoko. Next up are some arcade cores by Martin Donlin, also known as Wickerwaka. There's Gallop, Armed Police Unit, Air Duel, X Multiply, Hammering Harry, R-Type, R-Type 2, Dragon Breed, Image Fight, Ninja Spirit, Mr. Heli, and Legend of Hero Tamna. Next up are some Rising arcade cores released by core developer Pramod. Here's Battle Bach Raid, Sorcerer Striker, Battle Garega, Kingdom Grand Prix, and Bat Rider. Next up are some arcade cores released by other developers. Here we have Subs by Atari, released by AlanSWX and JasonA. Nemesis by Raki, Lemonson, and Allbomb. Joust 2 by JasonA and BirdyBro. Mystic Marathon, also by JasonA and BirdyBro. Another core by JasonA and BirdyBro. This one's Inferno. Turkey Shoot by BirdyBro. Psychic 5 by Raki. Megumi Rescue. This game is run through the Sega Master System core, because that core supports an arcade system that's based off the Sega Master System. No Man's Land by Macro. Tank Battalion by Mr. Retro Wolf. Exerion by Anton Gale, Raiders 5 by Mike Simone, Penguin Wars by Macro, Sun by Mike Simone, Tropical Angel by BirdyBro, Bosconian by Nolan Nicholson, Congo Bongo by DarFPGA, Crystal Castles by Enceladus, Slap Fight by Anton Gale, and Tiger Heli also by Anton Gale. So those are all the arcade games that I've noticed that were released in 2022. Please let me know if I missed any. Also note that many cores have other developers that have contributed to them. You can see a full list of contributors on each core's GitHub page. Now I'm going to talk about the new console cores that have been released in 2022. I'll first start off with the 32X core that was released by SRG 320. This core came out of nowhere and it was really impressive when it was released. One thing that I appreciate about this core is the fact that the 32X has some pretty good ports of superscalar games like Afterburner and Space Harrier. This core will certainly help with easing my weight for more superscalar games. There was an NTEX Adventure Vision core released by Kitrinx. This was a cartridge-based video game console that was housed in a portable arcade-like cabinet. Pierco released a Game & Watch core. Before we had Game Boys, Nintendo DS's, Nintendo Switches, there was Nintendo's series of Game & Watch handheld systems. paulb-nl released a core dedicated to the Super Game Boy. It even has MSU support for CD quality audio. Kitrinx released another core for the Wata Supervision, which was a portable console that tried to compete with the Game Boy. And another portable that also tried to compete with the Game Boy was a New Bit Corporation Gamate. This core was also released by Kitrinx. Flandango released a core for the PV-1000 console. And there was a Pokemon Mini core by GrieverHeart. So those are all the cores that I reported on in 2022 that were released. Let me know if I missed any. Again, many of the cores have multiple contributors and developers, and I most likely did not name all contributors for each core. Next up, I want to talk about the computer cores that were released in 2022. 2022 brought us a core for the popular Japanese computer, the PC-8801. There was a core for the Tactung Einstein TC01. This was a UK computer from 1984 that was aimed primarily at small businesses, but it did have some limited game support. This core was released by Pierco. AlanSWX released a core for the Computers Lynx 48-96. This was a British 8-bit computer based on a Z80 CPU and was released in 1983. Spark2k06 brought us a PCXT core. This core really became mature before 2023 came. AlanSWX released a core for the Coleco Atom. This was a computer based on the ColecoVision console. Flandango released a core for the children's computer, the Tomy Tutor. Flandango also released a core for the Casio PV-2000. Kitrinx released a core for the VTech Creative Vision. This was a hybrid computer / console. The core also supports the Laser 2001 computer. JasonA released a core for the EG-2000 Color Genie computer. MSX fans got a dedicated core for MSX1 computers, thanks to Molecula. And JasonA and Flandango released a core for the home lab computer. This was a kit computer developed in Hungary. So those are all the computer cores that I reported on being released in 2022. Again, let me know in the comments if I missed any other computer cores. And also, like the arcade cores and console cores, most of the cores had multiple developers working on them, and I couldn't name all of them. So check each core's GitHub page to see who contributed for each core. Now let me talk about some cores that are in development but have not been released, or are released but aren't stable enough. Core developer Jotego is working on the Neo Geo Pocket. While researching the Neo Geo Pocket, Jotego felt that a core is possible for the MiSTerFGPA. Right now, the entire CPU instruction set has been implemented, and Jotego assigned a dedicated engineer to work on it full time. There's also a Jaguar core that's in development by Kitrinx. It isn't really ready for public release, but the CPU, the OS ROM, the card bus, the DRAM bus, and the Tom and Jerry chips are fully implemented using documentation from Atari. The biggest issue that's holding up development for the core is that the real hardware used a very wide and relatively fast DRAM bus, which requires the core to use 2 SDRAM modules. The Tom and Jerry chips are also pretty challenging to implement. Core developer Jotego also announced that he plans to work on another Atari Jaguar core. Let's hope the resources of multiple developers can get us a Jaguar core sooner. In 2022, Jotego's team had finished schematic extraction for the arcade game Twin Cobra, but as I understand, core development has not started yet. There was also a SparkStation core that was announced for development. The SparkStation was a series of professional workstations developed by Sun Microsystems, and they used Sun's own UltraSpark CPUs. In 2022, work on an Apple IIgs core started. The development was kicked off by Pierco, who got the boot sequence working. However, he did hand off the development to 4 other developers. Furtek has been working on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles core. There's no gameplay yet, but Furtek was able to get some graphics appearing. For the Sega System 18 arcade boards, there was some schematic extraction done by Jotego's team. Savory Snacks started development on a Conix Multisystem core. The Conix Multisystem was a UK-based attempt to produce a console. It was never truly finished, but it did come close to actually being released. Eric S5 is developing a Commodore 128 core. The core hasn't been officially released, but you can download it from Eric S5's GitHub page to try it out yourself. Dent and Z started development for a Dragon's Lair core. Pierco is developing a core for the arcade game Rodlin. Schematics for the arcade game Capcom Bowling have been fully extracted. PCB extraction work started for the arcade game Gunbird 2. Work to get the arcade game WWF Superstars onto the MiSTerFGPA has begun. 2022 finally gave us some hope for Sega Superscaler games on MiSTer. We got some beta cores for Outrun, Turbo Outrun, and Super Hang-On. These Superscaler games have some sprite issues, which is why they haven't been officially released yet. But putting those sprite issues aside, these Superscaler games are very playable. In one of Jotego's Patreon posts, he mentioned the possibility of having Virtua Fighter on the MiSTerFGPA. I personally had thought that Sega Model 1 games would not be possible because of the complicated graphics architecture that Sega used for the Model 1 hardware. But Jotego's the developer, so he certainly knows a lot more than me about what can and cannot work. Jotego's team was also working on the arcade game Extermination. A core for the arcade game The New Zealand Story seemed imminent, but some issues arose which held back its release. Jimmy Stones is working on a core for the BBC Bridge Companion. This was a TV set-top box which helped you how to learn to play the Bridge card game. Jimmy Stones also started some work on some Sega/Gremlin arcade games. Pierco obtained a PCB for the arcade game Aero Fighters. A PCB for the arcade game Rainbow Islands was donated to Jotego's team. User Pew-san on the MiSTerFGPA forums started work on an FM Towns computer core. The core is available for testing if you want to try it out yourself. Multiple dead CPS3 boards have been donated to Jotego's team for PCB extraction. Jimmy Stones is working on a core for the arcade game Jet Fighter. Core developer Raki plans to release cores for Gradius and Super Locomotive in 2023. Raki also announced work on Darius. And Raki announced that they will start preparing work for a Tidal F3 core this winter. Wickerwaka started documenting the RndMnkIII hardware. This is the hardware that runs games like R-Type Leo, Ninja Baseball Batman, and many more. And core developer Pramod announced that work began on Smash TV and Narc. Currently, the CPU is 90% done. These games use the same CPU as Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam, so hopefully these cores can help with development of cores for NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat. Now I want to talk about some hardware developments for the MiSTerFGPA. In 2022, we got support for GunCon 2 and GunCon 3 light guns. This was thanks to Nolan Nicholson. This support lets you use these light guns with any core that supports light gun gaming. It's not like the snack method where you need the original light gun for each core in order to play those games. Note that the GunCon 2 only works on CRT televisions, while the GunCon 3 can work on CRTs and modern flat panel displays. There was also official support for the Gun for IR added to the MiSTerFGPA project. This gun can also be used with any core that supports light gun gaming. 2022 also gave us a multitude of new MT32 Pi kits that were based on the Raspberry Pi 02W. There are now multiple vendors offering kits designed for the Raspberry Pi 0W too. There's an official MiSTerFGPA design created by Sorge, the creator of the MiSTerFGPA project. There's also another design created by Dopefish, who's a creator of the MT32 Pi project. And others made their own design to work with the Raspberry Pi 02W. There's also been multiple projects based on the TTY to OLED project. The TTY to OLED project is a do-it-yourself project that helps you create an external screen that can display relevant MiSTer information when playing games. There's some screen attachments for MiSTer, some color versions of the project, versions that use matrix displays, and a version that works wirelessly. Those are just some of the hardware projects that are compatible with the MiSTerFGPA project. If there are any other hardware projects that interest you, let me know in the comments. Now let me talk about other MiSTer related updates. In 2022, we had video filter presets added to the MiSTerFGPA. This greatly improved the usability of video filters and allow you to save your favorite presets. We also got support for adaptive scan lines. These are scan lines that change thickness according to the brightness of an image. In darker areas, scan lines get thicker, and scan lines get thinner in brighter areas. This behavior will make things look closer to an analog CRT. We also got MiSTer Game Launcher files in 2022. These files give you the ability to launch games directly without loading a core. So if you want to load Sonic the Hedgehog without opening the Genesis core, you can do that. These MGL files were important for the work that Robert Garcia Lago did to give us dedicated menu listings for systems that are piggybacking on other cores. For example, to launch Game Gear games, we needed to open up the Sega Master System core. And to launch 2600 games, we needed to launch the 7800 core. These MGL files now let us have dedicated menu listings for Game Gear, Atari 2600, and other systems. We now have official options to overclock the CPU in MiSTer. Why would you want to overclock the CPU? Well, overclocking should help with hybrid emulation efforts on the AO486 and Amiga cores. Overclocking the CPU can also slightly reduce game loading times on some cores. It should also help with anything that is CPU bound. Some people talked about major improvements using FluidSynth for MT32 Pi. And you also have the option to underclock if you feel like saving some power. There are also major changes to Update All and the MiSTer Downloader. For Update All, third-party database support was added. You can now add your own custom database to Update All to have it download whatever you want. If you create a database that gets enough interest from many users, there's the possibility of it being an official option in Update All. Some new databases created are the CoinOp Collection database, which downloads all of Darren O's and Attract 17's cores. There's a database for Wizzo's scripts, and a database for Mike Simone's native S-Video cores. Update All has also reached version 2.0. It was rewritten in Python, which allowed the Epsilon to provide a better UI, reduce maintenance, and offer color schemes and more. The MiSTer Downloader also reached version 1.4. One of the major features for version 1.4 is that it added support for filters, so you can specify to download only the cores you care about and ignore the rest, allowing you to play only the cores and games you care about. Thanks to AlanSWX, help documentation was added to each core, so you now have something to refer to if you need help getting a core working without the need to refer to the internet. AlanSWX is also spearheading another documentation project. This one is the MiSTer Google Slides PDF project. These are PDFs that will provide helpful tips and commands that will get you the best use out of cores. For example, the C64 PDF document shows helpful commands like how to list directories, load programs, and a keyboard guide. If you feel that you can contribute to this PDF project, please join the discussion on the MiSTerFGPA forums. An official CRT guide was added to the MiSTerFGPA GitHub. This guide has info on connecting to RGB, component, or VGA capable screens. It also has info on composite and S-Video connections. You get some recommended I&I settings and more. There are also some MiSTer stage events in 2022. These are audio interviews with prominent members of the MiSTerFGPA community, and the stage events are hosted by Artemio. In 2022, there were interviews with AlanSWX, Robert Pipe, Wickerwaka, and BirdyBro. The stage events are done live on Discord, but are also posted to podcast services and YouTube. Zez Retro did an interview with MiSTer vendor MiSTer Add-ons. If you're curious about a business that's dedicated to selling MiSTerFGPA products, check out the interview. In 2022, I found a YouTube channel by Mr. Retro Wolf that teaches you how to develop a core for yourself. The core that you will be developing in this video series is Tank Battalion by Namco. This video series is also kind of like a diary of a core development journey, because once the series was complete, Mr. Retro Wolf officially released the core to the MiSTerFGPA project. Please check out the tutorial series if you're interested in FPGA development or you want an idea on how a core is created. Mike Simone has done some great work in 2022 for users with TVs that only have either S-Video or composite output. He's added native S-Video support to over 100 cores. It's also possible to use composite with these cores too by using an S-Video to composite adapter. These cores are separate from the original ones, but you can enable the option to download these cores through the Update All script. To output S-Video on your MiSTer, you have to use a VGA to component cable connected to an RCA to S-Video cable. There's also another adapter coming that will give you much better composite video quality. But if you're using S-Video, the current adapter that's being sold in Ultimate MiSTer will do just fine. If you want to play a game on MiSTer and continue it on your PC, then you can do it by this online save file converter. This website lets you convert save files for MiSTer and use them on PC emulators and vice versa. This only works for save files and will not work for save states. RetroRGB did an interview with the creators of the MiSTer multi-system. They talk about future add-ons for multi-system owners and showed off a portable prototype portable MiSTer system that they were developing. RetroRGB also did an interview with core developer Wickerwaka, who brought us the IREM M72 core that runs R-Type and R-Type 2 and more. The Raspberry Pi's Press Wireframe magazine had an issue with an article dedicated to the MiSTerFGPA project. You can download this magazine for free from Wireframe's website. There used to be physical magazines available for sale, but those are now sold out. Now here's a summary of the content I produced for my channel in 2022. Besides the weekly news videos, I also created content on the GunCon 2 and 3 light guns, how to use Mike Simone's S-Video cores, a video on the Ironclad Plus Mini ITX I/O board for MiSTer. This is an I/O board that lets you have a MiSTer setup on pretty much any computer case. I did content on some quick looks at some newly released cores or core features. I also created content for the Analog Pocket, but going forward, I won't be able to make it a weekly episode. I want to use the extra time to release more MiSTer related content in 2023. So 2022 was a great year for the MiSTer FPGA project. We got lots of new arcade, computer, and console cores, and there is so much more coming in 2023. So I'm looking forward to continuing this journey with all of you. So that's it for this wrap up. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.